I'm back with another Ben 10 action figure review. So typically I do these review videos once a week, but I did have some time a few days ago to make an extra one, so if you didn't see that, it is up on my channel just in case you missed it. That one had Alien Force Ben, Swamp Fire, Echo, and Humongosaur. That was the one that kickstarted the Alien Force Alien reviews. So in today's video we have got Jetray, Big Chill, Chromastone, and Brainstorm. So let's get going on those and start this review. Here we have Jetray. Definitely one of the most used aliens, I would say, in Alien Force. Ben's go-to for speed and travel and flight and all that. So articulation, he has a 360 head swivel, you can turn all the way around. The arms do come up and go 360, but they also go up and down this way. So typically you can only go around that way, like front and back. But with Jetray you actually can go up and down side to side here. So he's got a different kind of joint in there than the one we usually see. And then going down to the legs, he does have that hip joint. So that can go up, and it can't really go back very far. I think it's just because this back part with his tail is preventing it, but it doesn't really go back. He does have the knee joints, so those can bend up and down. And then that's it for the legs, nothing else there, nothing in the feet. And then that's all for articulation. His arms are just one solid piece. There's no elbow joint like we've been seeing with these other figurines. I think it's probably just because of his wings. They had to make it like one solid piece, but nothing in the wrists or anything there. The paint and detailing, it looks pretty good. There's a few things, like one that stood out to me. They did not paint the back of his like his yellow crest here, his antenna kind of things. They did not paint the back of those. This should be yellow here, but they didn't do that. But otherwise it's pretty decent overall. You can see all the detailing on his face. They did sculpt teeth in his mouth and all those lines and detailing there. The paint kind of does overflow. The black paint there kind of goes onto the yellow a bit. And the Omnitrix looks good. The paint wear is just from old age there. This, like the lightning bolts here, this black pattern, it's actually sculpted in. You can kind of see that there. It's not just painted on. And they sculpt his protruding ribs there. So the wings, they're obviously a little strange because, you know, you lift them up and there's this huge gap there that would not be there in the show. His wings don't look like that in the show. They're more connected to his whole body. But I mean, they kind of had to do that, I guess, for the sake of the toy. Can't really avoid that too much. If you want this to be articulated, then something has to give, just because it's a toy. I guess they could have maybe attached a piece onto his actual body that was behind here, so when you lifted up the wing it would have still shown that piece here, and it would have given the illusion of being part of the wing still. That's the only thing I can really think of, but even that wouldn't look totally right, especially if you looked at it from the back, if there was like this protruding piece here. But just the way action figures are and Jetray's body, it's kind of a difficult combination. But I don't think it looks too bad, and I typically just pose him like this with the arms down. I don't really ever have his arms up or anything, but if you wanted to pose him like he was flying, it wouldn't really look 100% show accurate. But that's what imagination is for, and that's what toys are about, so there you go. Back looks pretty good. The lightning bolts continue from the Omnitrix symbol down to his tail. And that looks really good. You can see the back of his wings are red as they should be. The tail here is not articulated. There's nothing there for the tail. Kind of bends a little, but yeah, no articulation there on the tail. Sculpt-wise, I think they did really good. I mean, everything is sculpted really well. His long, lanky fingers and toes, and the way his legs are shaped. Everything looks pretty good on him. My biggest thing, like I said, is kind of just the way the wings are. It looks a little odd, but hard to avoid it. So that's about it for Jetray. Moving on, I usually do the scaling here, and I'll get to that, but I wanted to show him compared to a figurine from the last video I did, Humongosaur, so I'm bringing him back for a second, because I mentioned in my last video that the scaling in these figurines really kind of starts to waver from here, and really it gets bad into Omniverse. They just kind of completely ignored scaling and proportions. So I'm bringing back Humongosaur because this is kind of what I was talking about. Jetray, if you include up to the tips of his little yellow parts there, he's taller than Humongosaur, and I had talked about that in my last video, that Humongosaur is just too small for Humongosaur, and this is what I'm talking about. They made Jetray so big, and it just doesn't seem right, especially, you know, like how I have them displayed. They're all lined up in a row. It kind of shows more there when they're all side by side that some of the scaling is just off. But yeah, I wanted to bring Humongosaur and kind of show that a bit more. Since I did mention in my last video, I wanted to give a better example. I mean, especially if you stretch Jetray's legs out a bit, because I kind of had him hunched over. You can see he's definitely taller than Humongosaur. So shouldn't be like that, but it is, and I just wanted to show you guys. But moving on to the actual next alien I'll be reviewing, we've got Big Chill, who again just seems kind of small next to Jetray. They really made Jetray big. It's not just his height. I mean, he looks so wide and big and bulky overall, and then Big Chill looks so short and skinny, and just doesn't look quite right. Scaling on these isn't the best. But now to review Big Chill. Big Chill's one of my favorites from Alien Force. I like his ghost-like personality, and I think his character design is so clever. I love that his wings turn into a cloak and a hood. I think that's really clever character design, and he's just something about him. I've always liked him. He's just a cool alien. So as for articulation, he does not have any turn in his head. It just doesn't move. Why? I have no idea. There's nothing here that should prevent that. There's no reason that he shouldn't be able to turn his head. I don't know if it's just because he has such a small head that it wouldn't have worked to put a joint in there. I'm not sure, but yeah, there's no movement in the head at all. The arms probably have the potential to go 360, but they don't because of the wings. Now I'll just move a couple steps here and talk about the wings. These are articulated, so they go back and forth like they're flapping, I guess. So if you pull the wings back like that, then the arms have the room to go 360. So like I said, the potential's there, but I mean, typically you're not going to see Big Chill like that with his wings kind of smushed together in the back there. So, you know, that the arm movement is a little limited. And then he has nothing in the elbow, which You know, these figurines in this wave typically do have that. And then nothing else on the wrist. And then again, the legs could, you know, they can move back, but they're a little bit blocked by the wings. So yeah, if you move the wings back, then that helps. Then you can move the hip joints forward. They go really far up, like 90-degree angle. He's got some flexible posing there with the legs. And then nothing else, no knee or ankle joint. So he doesn't have a whole lot of articulation going. His arms are lacking, the legs are lacking. There's no knee, there's no elbow, and his head does not turn at all. So he's really lacking in articulation. I'm not sure why they did that for this specific character, but he kind of does have the wing articulation that sort of makes up for it, or at least gives him a little something extra that the other characters don't have. But that's it for articulation. So the paint and detailing is much better than the articulation on this figurine, and you can see it's a beautiful job. They got all of his pattern and his markings on there, and all this is just painted on. The blue on the black is just painted on, but it looks really good. You can see they got the pattern on his face. They sculpted his feet and everything well. The wings are done really well. I mean, look at that. That's just really pretty. The design on his wings, they did a really good job on that. And the hinges there, you can see he's got some metal hinges in the wing. This part here does come off. This is like the antenna that would fold down onto his head. In the show, it like folds down onto his head to make his hood. These antennae do come off, so that's a separate piece that's just got a couple pegs in there that plug into the back of his body. So when you're looking for this on eBay or secondhand, this is you rarely find this piece. Like a lot of the time it's missing. You almost have to buy him new in package from eBay to even get this piece. Like it can be pretty hard to find him with that if you're wanting a complete figurine. But yeah, you can see the holes there. It just pops in. And again, just a random thing they seem to do. I don't know why they made that a separate piece. It doesn't make sense to me, but they do things that don't make sense to me a lot. So, but the sculpting on the wings, you can see just faintly, they do have some lines in the wings there. You can see it better there. So they did add some detail for the wings on the front too, not just all the detail on the back. Now they did make a version of Big Chill. They did make a figurine of him cloaked, so that is an option if you prefer his cloak looked better, or his, like if you prefer to pose him or display him with that cloak look. That is an option. It's still slightly articulated, surprisingly, even with the cloak. But yeah, all his wings are folded down and he's got the hood and everything, so they do make that version. I don't have it. I would love to have it because Big Chill is one of my favorite. I would love to have it, but it's kind of expensive on eBay, or just more than I would want to spend. It's like 50 to 60 bucks, but for a character I already have, I mean, I already have Big Chill, so I just don't know if I want to spend that much money on a character I already have. But knowing myself, I probably will buy it eventually, just because I like this alien so much. But that's it for Big Chill. So the next alien in this review is Chromastone. Scaling on this is better with these two. If I can get Chromastone to stand, there we go. That is better. That's more show accurate, and they're kind of equal in height, which I would say is accurate. So let's talk about Chromastone. Chromastone's articulation, he does have the 360 head swivel. And you know, he's got a tiny, tiny little head here. So the fact that he has that makes me think Big Chill could have. I don't know why they didn't. But his head does turn around all the way. And then he has the 360 shoulder. And he does have the elbow joint. So that goes up and down. And he's got the hip joint. Again, that goes up pretty darn far. Goes back just a bit there. And he has the knee joint. So with this guy, we're getting back into our more typical articulation. Big Chill was lacking quite a few points of articulation, but we're pretty much back to standard here. We got the head, the shoulder, the elbow, the hip, the knee. Nothing in the wrist or the ankles. And that's it for articulation. So one of the things on this guy with the detailing, you can see they made his pink parts like translucent. It's a, I mean, you can see when I put my finger behind that, the spike on his back. It's translucent. I don't know why they did that, because that was never represented in the show. They never alluded to his pink parts being, you know, crystal, like see-through, but I guess it's possible. It could be. I mean, kind of makes sense, but it's just like a liberty they took with the toy. It was nothing we ever really saw in the show. Personally, I would have preferred it to be more like the show, where it's just a solid pink color. But this is what we got. It's a clear, translucent plastic. To me, I think they even put it on this part of his face where the pink should be, and it just doesn't look good there, because the back is not translucent, so this translucent pink just looks really dark, because all you're getting is you're seeing the darkness from the inside of the head. It just doesn't look right. And they really got lazy on the paint job with this guy. He should have all these, you can see the sculpting here, these dots and these lines in his leg. That should all be painted black. In the show, he's got these black markings all over his body. There's another one, you can see that spot. That should all be painted black, and they just did not at all. So that just seems lazy. I mean, we've seen some really fine detailing on these figurines, so it's not like they couldn't have. They just didn't. So yeah, kind of disappointing there. Otherwise, on this guy, the sculpt looks really good. You know, you take away a few irritations with the paint and some weird translucent plastic decisions. The rest of this guy looks really good. The sculpt is great. His back looks awesome with all these spikes coming out, and these they're not removable. Like Diamond Head, I went over that in my previous video. Diamond Head's back spikes could come out, but these do not, so you don't have to worry about losing these or not having them if you buy secondhand. None of these spikes come out. But they sculpted everything really well. All his angles and, you know, the way his body's all rocky. And what gets me is they even sculpted the lines for these black markings. They just didn't paint them in. And even the translucent plastic parts are sculpted very nicely. You can see all his fingers and the way all these ridges on his hand. So yeah, not a great figurine overall, just because they seem to get lazy and make weird decisions, but not terrible either. So the last alien I have for my review is Brainstorm. So here is these two next to each other. Chromastone does not like to stand. He's such a skinny, lanky alien, or lanky figurine. He just doesn't like to stand. But here is Brainstorm next to Chromastone, which is more accurate. I think the scaling's pretty decent there. So Brainstorm, definitely one of the most underused aliens of Alien Force. Now, articulation on him, he doesn't have a head. I don't even know where he would consider the end of his head or his neck, maybe right here. But yeah, there's nothing there. He does have the arm swivel, so that goes about that far back and then that far forward, so it goes up pretty high. Could probably do 360, but it is hindered by the shell of his head. And that's it for the arms. Those are all just one solid piece, nothing on the wrist or elbow. And then moving down, he does have this, I don't know what you want to call his waist, I guess. His waist has a 360 swivel, so that does go all the way around. But then that's it, nothing else. None of these legs are articulated. This whole entire piece here with the legs and the body is all just one solid piece. And then he does have this cool head articulation up here. His shell does open up to expose his brain, which is an awesome thing in my opinion. That's a key factor of the character, is his electrical brain. You know, the way he can open that up and shoot electricity. It's a big part of him. So that's awesome that they included that. You can see it's just on a hinge back here, so you can open and close each side individually. So Brainstorm, the character itself and his character design doesn't really lend itself to much articulation, I suppose. So they did kind of make up for that. They did kind of make up for that with this here. That's pretty cool. And the head, or the brain, is a solid piece. You can't like take the brain out or anything with this figurine. They did make another figurine, a Brainstorm, where you could like remove the brain, and it was like a squishy toy you could play with. But this is just one solid piece. And the detail and painting on this figurine is really good. Like not a single thing out of line. Everything is sculpted really well. I mean, he's an oddly shaped alien, and they really pulled it off. All of his crabby legs here. You can see some sculpting at the joints. There's his behind. Very, very oddly shaped alien. You can see these little whiskers, I guess you could say. They are sculpted on there on his face. Move his arm. But yeah, those are sculpted on. The eyes are really just painted on. There might be some slight indenting there, but very, very subtle. The mouth, you can see he's got some teeth there. The claws look really good, and all this line detailing on his claw and his arms. Now, if you have this part of his head open, you can bend the arm back even more, but it still just won't go all the way around. Actually, let's look at the brain itself. You can see some nice sculpting there. Looks pretty good. It's a little more purpley than I remember it being in the show. I think in the show it was really more pink, and this is definitely a purple paint. He's got these all on his head. These are all sculpted. So yeah, I mean, despite him not having your typical articulation, I think it's a great figurine. I think this is so cool to have this here. I don't ever really pose him like that, although I could. I usually pose it with it closed. But I think this is a really good looking figurine. And that's it for Brainstorm, and that does conclude this review, so let me get everyone lined up back here. Okay, and that wraps up another Ben 10 action figure review. My next video will be a bit of a shorter one. I'm only going to be reviewing 3 figurines in that video. I'll be talking about Spider Monkey, Goop, and Alien X. So do keep an eye out for that. I'll catch you guys later, and thanks for watching.